I know today we are all excited about navigating, the CAP filings and everything we are going to discuss today. H-1B CAP filings with confidence, how to prepare ourselves, overcoming all the challenges, ensuring everything. And we are going to have a very, very special guest. I hope you are super excited, just like I am. Welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm Napasa Pradhan, and today we have a very special guest. Yes, esteemed immigration attorney, who is today going to talk about, F1 status matters, and we are going to navigate through the H1B cap filings with confidence. We are going to discuss a lot of complexities, and without further ado, please help me welcome back to this show once again, Attorney Chand Parvataneni, who has joined us before as well. Welcome back, Attorney. How are you doing?
Hello, Nipasa. Thank you for having me over today. I'm doing great. The weather in Dallas is pretty warm, so feeling good today.
Looks good, looks good. I can totally see the sky, it's blue. So I'm sure everybody out there is feeling great today. And so am I. Very happy to see you, Attorney. You look fresh and nice. I hope you had a good week so far.
Pretty good so far. It's getting close to the cap season next month. So next month,
Yes,
March and April is like the busiest time of the year for our law firm.
I'm sure, I'm sure. So Attorney Chan Parvataneni, friends out there, he is from SPB Law Firm, and you should definitely check him out. And definitely before we start off, I wanted to say by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. So, use of information is at your own risk. So, Attorney Chand, what do you have to say? What can people expect from this episode today from us?
So today we have a lot of students in United States from India, especially. A lot of them are on student status, and as a part of being on student status, people get an opportunity to work, and typically that's called OPT status or CPT status. And a lot of these folks, the students, they transition to H1B, and as they're transitioning to their career in H1B, eventually file for the green cards, what they've done during OPT, what they've done during CPT, have they worked, have they got paid? So all of this really impacts what's going to happen to their future career. When you apply for a H1B, if they have any problems during OPT or CPT, their H1B is jeopardized. Their green card filings will be jeopardized. So today, I think what we want to discuss is when somebody is on OPT, when somebody is on CPT, what kind of precautions they're supposed to take, what are the kind of issues they can anticipate when they apply for their H1B. So there's a student working on OPT, he applies for H1B. Will he directly get an approval? Will there be any questions about his OPT status? What kind of questions that USCIS could potentially ask regarding and specifically regarding their CPT or OPT? We get a whole bunch of RFEs on CPTs and OPTs when they apply for their H1B. So we want to take use of this show and kind of give you some pointers, what you can expect, what kind of issues will definitely pop up when you get your H1B filed, and how do you overcome them. So being prepared ensures that you don't have any surprises when the H1B gets filed. And since we have like numerous students in the United States who will be transitioning to H1B in the next month's cap season, once the lottery starts, I think this is a good opportunity for everybody to ensure their student status and specifically their CPT and OPT. Everybody is following rules and being compliant with the regulations.
Absolutely. And today, friends out there, we are really going to dive deep into this topic and get ourselves, ready for the examination, you can say, of F1 OPT and CPT related issues, and of course the CAP filings. And he's actually, Attorney Chand is going to give us a few tips also, hopefully, and share some really nice experiences so that we can really learn. So, without further ado, let's talk about the topic today. F1 OPT and CPT based RFEs and navigating H1B CAP filings with confidence. So, um, you know, tell us about mastering F1 status, overcoming CPT challenges, ensuring OPT payment compliance, and handling, all these criminal records. So my first question to you, under this topic would be, can you explain the significance of OPT and CPT for international students seeking employment in the US?
Sure. So when somebody comes into the country on an F1 visa, so they're coming into the country to get their studies done. So they study, they go to the college, they go to the school, and they either start their bachelor's program or they start their master's program. And everybody's goal is to get a career in the field of their study. So typically that's pretty much what everybody does. And what is OPT? OPT stands for optional practical training. It's optional, but it's practical training. CPT is curriculum practical training. So what these practical trainings do is they it's a legal way where the government, USCIS, gives the students a chance to get into the career. So when somebody is spending all that money and getting their education in United States, this is a feature. The practical training is a feature by which they can start working for some company, get trained in their field of study, and transition into a career in that field. So it's a very good stepping stone. It's a feature where it's a very simple process where somebody gets authorization to work. You don't have to have sponsorship and all those things. It's a very simple, straightforward way where people can simply work for a company, get paid, and get trained in their field of study. So overall, a lot of people, a lot of students, they use this practical training and find a job. And finding a job is very easy because you don't require sponsorship, which is the best part of practical training. So you simply apply, and you pretty much are allowed to work under OPT or CPT, and you just get more opportunities because there are a lot of differences between H1B and OPT CPT. H1B has a lot of regulations. There is a limit on how much salary you can pay. You can't pay anything less than a certain wage. You can't work wherever you want, and the company has to do a very complex filing on H1B. So this OPT program basically eliminates everything. So what that means is, for OPT, somebody goes to a school, they graduate, and once they graduate, they apply for work authorization. It's a very simple form, and most of the time they simply get easily approved. Once they get that approval, they simply approach a company, and the company can hire them. The company doesn't have to sponsor them. So that is what is OPT. OPT is given after they finish their school. CPT, on the other
Mhm.
hand, curriculum practical training. So CPT, you don't have to actually finish your graduation. You can actually be studying, so you can attend classes, and while you're attending classes, you can actually work. So that's another way where people can get practical training. There are a little bit more
Mhm.
restrictions on who can be eligible for CPT, but that being said, if they get CPT, they can go to school, and while they're going to school, they can get some practical training. They can actually work for a company outside and get paid and get trained. So CPT and OPT, overall, these are avenues which people use to work, and the goal of these programs is not only to work but to get some practical training. So it is like a stepping stone. It is like a stepping stone into their career. So it's a very good thing, and a lot of people use it. If somebody is doing, for example, their masters in computer science, they get almost 3 years of OPT. So for 3 years, they're pretty much getting work authorization, and they don't have to get a H1B sponsored. And during these 3 years, they can stay in the country and they can work without the hassle of company having to sponsor them and so on. So overall, a great way for the folks out here who are on F1 visa to start working in the country.
Right, right. And when you read or you just saw our topic today, it also says criminal records. So there's nothing to be scared of, but maybe you could just talk about a few criminal records we would be touching upon today in this topic.
I definitely want to touch the criminal records because a couple of years back, we didn't really see a lot of issues. Or lately, our office gets a lot of calls, and we're seeing a lot of simple, I mean, trivial issues where people were like foolish enough to get into that trouble. And I will give you some examples. We had one case a few days back. So the person, he had a couple of glasses of some drinks, and then he started driving. Unfortunately, he was caught. And the crime was DUI, driving under influence. He did
Mhm.
not have a lot of blood alcohol limit, but he crossed the limit. So he got arrested. So the minute the police found him driving erratically, they arrested him. It's a criminal record. So somebody got arrested, and they got arrested because they were drunk. It's a DUI. And a lot of people who are young, because a lot of students are young, sometimes, even though it is not intentional, they do foolish things. And a DUI, driving under influence, this is a big thing we are seeing lately. It's a very, very big thing. And a
Right.
DUI has repercussions. Even if it's a single DUI, because they got arrested, tomorrow they're going to have a lot of problems. And so I want to take this show and let everybody out there know, educate your friends. DUI is not a simple thing. You drive when you're drunk, you get caught, it's going to jeopardize your entire career in the United States. That's a common thing that we've been seeing. Unfortunately, we also had a case where somebody was caught with marijuana. Some states, marijuana is legal. For example, in California, you can smoke weed, you can do marijuana, it's legal. But from an immigration perspective, there are certain rules. So be careful about drug usage, because we are hearing cases and I get calls about those. Not only that, if somebody ever gets arrested for some drug problem, they can even be deported. So there are very, very severe repercussions. And unfortunately, lately we've been seeing those scenarios. So I want everybody, I know there's a lot of those things out there, but be cautious. Stay away from those things. And federally, there are like very, very strict rules against drugs. So be away from those things. And another issue, shoplifting, theft. It's a thing that we are constantly seeing lately, and it's becoming more and more. And unfortunately, kids, they're young. I mean, people who are like attending college, they're young, and they make foolish mistakes. We had a case where somebody went into a store, a departmental store, and they basically they tampered with some of the tags, expensive clothes versus inexpensive clothes. They changed the tags. They got caught, and it's a small. The theft was for less than $50. Unfortunately, it's a crime. So even if it's a simple theft that's less than $50, the first thing that will happen is, if they get caught, they will get arrested. And a lot of these departmental stores, it looks like you just walk into the store and you come out, but they are heavily monitoring. They have ways to prevent theft. And these people, when they get caught, they get arrested. And tomorrow it's going to jeopardize everything. Their visa. So what happens is, if somebody gets arrested for a crime in United States, in a week or 2 weeks, more than likely, this is what is happening nowadays, their visa will get cancelled. So they are more than likely going to get an email from Department of State, the consulate, telling them that their visa is cancelled. Their visa is cancelled. They can still stay in the country, but what it means is, in the future, when they go back to get a visa, they'll have problems. So overall, what we want to tell everybody is, people are getting involved with petty thefts. Like they go to the store, they don't pay, they come out. It's a simple theft, small dollar amount, but it's going to jeopardize their entire career. People go to a party and then they get drunk. Simple, they think it's simple, but severe immigration repercussions. So overall, we are seeing cases. It was very, very rare to see these cases a few years back. Lately, I think we are seeing more and more of those cases. And unfortunately, I think because the rules are so strict, I think we should we should educate ourselves, we should educate all our friends that the repercussions are very severe. Everybody that comes to United States from India for F1 visa, they're highly, highly qualified. I mean, they have done their bachelor's in a very, very highly specialized field. They're coming to US again to study in a very highly specialized field. So these are educated folks out here. But an arrest record, the minute they get arrested, it's all out there in the public. Anybody can search their name and they can see the arrest record. Tomorrow, their future employers can see the arrest record. So the bottom line is, be aware. Some criminal records, even if they are small, they can ruin your entire career. That being said, depending on the severity, sometimes you even get deported to India. Simple crimes, you probably will not get deported, but it's going to make a lot of problems with your cases. When you go to India, you have to probably go through more challenges getting your visa. When you apply for your H-1B extensions, you go through more challenges. So small crimes may not get you deported, but they probably could ruin your entire career. That being said, we have bigger crimes like assault, crimes like battery. Those crimes, you're definitely going to get deported. So small crimes, probably you'll not get deported right away, but it's going to ruin your career. The bigger crimes, probably a very quick deportation. So everybody be cautious and try not to even get into any crimes. Unfortunately, if you are caught, you're arrested, you should always have an attorney. You should have an attorney that knows about the criminal law, not immigration alone, but criminal law. So if you ever get arrested, make sure in the city you got arrested, make sure you find a criminal lawyer, make sure somebody knows the criminal law in that jurisdiction, and engage an attorney. So if you ever get arrested, don't go and don't pay the fine, because sometimes for a simple criminal charge, they might just give you a penalty, a fine. But always engage an attorney. Just don't pay the fine. Always engage an attorney, and that attorney should be knowledgeable in criminal law in that jurisdiction. So always be cautious. Don't get into that situation. But if you do get into that situation, try to make sure you're well represented.
So well said. Absolutely. And, friends out there, don't commit any crime. Stay by the rules. Keep yourself safe. Don't go on to red marking, and yeah, I'll just say you heard the attorney, and we're going to discuss so much more and even dive deep into all of these factors today, also in this topic. So, I got another question for you, Chand. And why may F1 OPT and CPT based RFEs be issued during H1B cap filings? Why do you think
Sure.
so?
Sure. So this is what's going to happen. So all the students, eventually they will find an employer. The employer will file the H-1B petition. And when the employer files the H-1B petition, there are a couple of things going on. First, USCIS wants to make sure the company is legitimate. So that part is good. The second thing is USCIS wants to make sure the right salary is getting paid and everything is all good. So that is one part. And then there is one more part. There is something called change of status. So any student that is in United States, when they file for their H-1B, more than likely their employer is filing their case as change of status from F1 to H1. So whenever an employer requests a filing for change of status, changing their status from F1 student visa to H1 visa, the first and the foremost thing that USCIS is going to look for is, did you maintain your valid F1 status? And what does that mean? So what that means is they want to make sure that somebody followed all the regulations of F1 visa. So when somebody is on F1 visa, they're supposed to attend school, they're supposed to go to college, they're supposed to make sure they get the passing grade, they do all that stuff, they graduate. Not only that, they also have other requirements. They have mandatory in-school attendance. You can't just attend classes online all the time. There are certain rules about online classes. So they want to make sure all these things are done. They also want to make sure everybody has maintained valid OPT status and or CPT status if they have taken CPT. So when somebody takes CPT, there are regulations, and those regulations are, yes, you can work, but you also have to attend school in person, and you also have to pay tuition. You have to actually show progress towards your graduation. You can't just fail classes. So there are certain things, and this is what a CPT RFE typically does. Basically, the RFE tries to ensure that somebody has maintained a valid status. For example, if somebody is on OPT, they are supposed to be employed. And there are certain rules. There are rules on when somebody can be employed but not paid, like an unpaid internship. Unpaid internship is allowed in certain circumstances. And they also have to work certain number of hours, and it is 20 or more hours. So there are all these requirements. And also that job has to be in the same line of study. So if somebody is a civil engineer, he cannot just go and work for an IT company unless there is some nexus between his degree and the job. So USCIS, what they try to do is when somebody's H-1B gets filed, they issue this RFE. And in this RFE, they say, to give you this benefit, the change of status, you have to prove that you are maintaining valid status while you are on OPT or while you are on CPT. And they will say, these are all the bunch of documents you're supposed to provide. The reason is, all USS is trying to do is they're trying to make sure that somebody, while they're doing their OPT training, they are actually following all the regulations. They did work like they're supposed to. They did get paid like they're supposed to, and all those bunch of OPT regulations. And through this RFE, they're trying to make sure that somebody has followed the rules for their current status, the current F1 status, and only then they will allow the change of status. So USCIS very, very commonly issues an RFE and talks about somebody's OPT or CPT status. And what that means is it is very important that everybody on OPT and CPT know that these RFEs are out there. And what that means is you ensure what is required for those RFEs right now. You don't wait until you get an RFE. You get educated about what is required, try to get all this documentation ready. And for somebody in the future, make sure you know the regulations and you follow the rules. So the time you get an RFE, you have everything ready, and you don't have to worry about a denial for change of status.
Absolutely. It's very important to know the rules and stay by the rules, stick by them all the time. And Chand, I have so many more questions, and I'm so happy that a lot of folks out there have joined us, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and also on Facebook. And very happy to see many questions dropping in. I would like to say that if you have any questions to the attorney directly, you can just type in your comments. We'll be very happy to take them at the end or in between. So just stick with us, stay with us, and SP on YouTube, Charisma Gillen, Samyukta, Vihan, um, Ira, JBR Prasad on YouTube. Very nice. Thank you so much. Keep dropping your comments. We'll take them up very, very soon. And Chan, I'm very excited as well. So let's move on into the topic. I got another question for you, and that is how can applicants effectively respond to RFEs related to their F1 OPT or CPT status during the H1B cap filing process?
So the goal is so whenever somebody gets an RFE for F1 OPT or CPT, the goal is provide documents to prove somebody is maintaining status, and USCIS will give their own list of documents that will prove somebody is maintaining their own uh, a valid status. For example, for OPT they typically always ask for a couple of things. They always want to make sure if somebody is in their initial first year of OPT, they're employed for 20 hours or more, and they don't exceed unemployment of 90 days or more. So technically during OPT, they are allowed to have unemployment. They're allowed to have gaps in their employment. However, OPT is of two parts. First is the initial OPT, the 1 year OPT, and then you have the 2 year STEM extension OPT. The 2 year STEM OPT is only for a couple of majors, not for all majors, but for most of the majors in IT world, engineering world, science, they get the STEM, the 2 year extension. So the rule is during the first 1 year, 1 year of initial OPT, one can have a maximum of 90 days. 90 days unemployment is possible. Also, they have to work for 20 hours or more. And during the next 2 years, the 2 year extension, they are still allowed to have unemployment, but together for the entire 1 + 2, 3 years of OPT that they get, that everybody gets in STEM fields, they're allowed to only have maximum of 150 days of unemployment. So this is important. So what that means is USCIS will say, hey, provide us proof that you did not exceed the unemployment days. What that means is the students, the OPT students, they are supposed to get letters from their employers explaining how many days they worked and show all the corresponding pay statements. So there is a way to do it. And that is pretty much what they're saying. Prove through these documents. So OPT, the simplest way is simply gather your employment letters, gather your pay statements. That is the best way to do it. Some employers don't give letters because if people have changed their job, they're not in good terms with their employer, prior employer, they might not get a letter. In that case, just document all the pay statements, document whatever you can, and use that as evidence to show that you did get practical training or you worked under OPT for those time periods. CPT, on the other hand, CPT has a little bit more requirements. CPT has to be authorized by the school, and CPT has to be in a particular line of study that is relevant to their major, and they have to pay tuition, they have to attend classes, so they also have to show proof that they have in-person class attendance. So what the students are supposed to do is gather all evidences of your class attendance, your tuition receipts, and proof that your school actually authorized the CPT through a CPT agreement, and your corresponding pay statements, your tasks that you have done during CPT. And by effectively, very cleanly projecting all that information back to USCIS officer, they can get an approval. And majority of the time, I mean, we typically don't see issues because I would say 99% of the students, they are very, very cautious about maintaining their status, cautious about doing things right. So it's very rare that, yes, we do see a lot of those RFEs, but the denials are typically very rare.
Right. And it's very important to not only keep your records clean, but also keep them in order and do everything nicely, correctly, neatly, so that you don't have too many questions and not too much to deal with, right, Chand?
That, that, that is correct. I mean, a lot of times people do the right thing, but they don't keep the records. And whenever like somebody's on OPT, it's also maintaining those records. It's not only you working, but it's also maintaining those records. It's not only you attending classes, but actually maintaining records, all kinds of evidences, so all kinds of proofs. Because in the end, it's all about what kind of evidentiary documents do you have. Even though whatever you have done is all right, if you don't have the documents, then you will not be able to prove. So everybody be cautious and keep collecting your documents, because your OPT is for 3 years and your
Right,
studies are for a certain time. People tend to miss documents. So keep records of
right.
everything. Keep records of your tuition payments. Keep records of your class attendance. Keep records of your employment. Anytime you change your
Mhm.
address, keep records of that, your address history, your employment history. Always document the exact dates of your employment. So be cautious. Don't make any accidental mistakes. It's not tough, but it's just tedious.
Yes, definitely. And talking about it, if you were to just say one word, for what role does proper documentation play in reducing RFE risks for F1, OPT, or CPT during H1B cap filings, what word would that be?
It's basically present your proof that you're maintaining valid status upfront. And what that means is show your pay statements. If somebody is on OPT, you're always expected to provide your pay statements and your I-20s as a part of the filing. So provide that right away. Your I-20s will tell you who your employer is. Your pay statements will reflect that. So everybody on CPT or OPT, you should submit your I-20s and pay statements upfront. And for CPT folks, it's also always good to add your CPT agreements um, right upfront, and then don't wait until you get an RFE. That being said, even if you do everything right, sometimes they will issue an RFE. That being said, it'll minimize your RFE chances as much as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And uh, if you were to just say one word for this, what would it be? What role does proper documentation play in this? So one word, just one word, what would you say?
One word I will say is just uh, be precise. I mean, give precise documents, and you're done. Yeah, don't take a
Absolutely.
chance.
So, yes, friends. So, one thing to keep in mind is to be precise in everything. So, documentation, your records, just keep it all clean and precise to the point. Not too much, not overly decorating it, but just what it is. Okay. And anyway, so Chand, I got another question before we move on for a break, and that is, what strategies can applicants utilize to increase their chances of H-1B cap removal when transitioning, from F-1 OPT or CPT status?
So I think the best strategy is always get an offer from a good employer. So that is very, very important. Get the H1B offer from a very good employer, a reliable employer. And the company can be small or big. It's not about small or big, but it's about being a reliable employer. There are a lot of fraud out there, a lot of companies that are fraudulent. So be cautious. Always try to get an offer from a company that you know is reliable. Always, what I say is ask for referrals. If the company has good referrals, you're in good shape, because the employer is the one that files your H1B petition, and to increase your chances. If the company is reliable, they will have a genuine bona fide job. The company will have everything bona fide. And most of the time, if you're already on F1, OPT, or CPT, you're already having a US education. So that means that you're already highly educated. And so education wise, you're good. And to increase your chances, you just have to find a reliable company, a company that does everything right. And it's not tough. I mean, you always make sure you get a good referral. And doing so, you would definitely decrease your chances of RFEs. You would increase your chances of approval, because a reliable company, they have a bona fide offer. So even if there is an RFE, they know how to fight it, and doing so, they will get an approval.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, hopefully, friends, that you have questions to the attorney and keep them coming. I would say, we have a lot more to discuss under this topic, and this is Immigration and Jobs Talk Show, friends out there. And today we'll also be taking up a lot of your questions. So wherever you're watching us, wherever you have joined us in this live session, whether on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, just keep posting your questions. And you could even mail me directly at nipa@higheritpeople.com, or call me on the number, or even WhatsApp me in this number, 408-335-6444. And don't forget to visit our website, www.higheritpeople.com. And we will continue this session with none other than Attorney Chand Parvataneni, but right after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
Are you an IT consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry. Exceptional employee benefits. Highly rated by our employees. Global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us on the number 833-412-8472 or mail us at support@higheritpeople.com or visit our website www.higheritpeople.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I am Napasa Pradhan, and today we have Attorney Chand Parvataneni. We are discussing about this topic, which encompasses a thorough examination of F-1 OPT and CPT-related issues during H-1B CAP filings, shedding light on common challenges and even offering expert guidance on navigating the process successfully. So hopefully, so far, it has been very, very enlightening, and we have a lot more to discuss. So stay with us, friends. And yes, Attorney Chand, I have another question to continue with the topic. So what do you have to say on? If you can actually share, maybe before we move on to other questions, some success stories of applicants, who navigated the H-1B CAP filing process successfully despite the RFEs related to their F-1 OPT or CPT status.
Sure. So, so in general, these RFEs are pretty common, not too uncommon. And so we have like a lot of success stories. We have probably thousands of cases where we had dealt with OPT RFEs or CPT RFEs. And most of the time, the challenge is like having the employees to go back to their employers, get the letters from the employers, and get all the pay statements. Sometimes what happens is they keep changing employers, and sometimes we have the most challenging cases are those cases where during the initial OPT, initial first 12 months of OPT, a lot of people don't have any pay statements. And the reason for that is a lot of them sometimes do unpaid internships because they're getting trained, practical training. And the regulations say that during the initial training, somebody can even have an unpaid internship. Unpaid positions are completely fine as long as they're trained for 20 hours or more. So most of the challenging cases are typically those where they come back and say, I changed my employer, my previous employer is not going to give a proper letter documenting these things. I don't have the pay statements, and but I did get trained. But because I don't have pay statements, I cannot really prove that I got trained because the old employer is now not issuing a letter because I'm not in good terms with him. So those are the kind of challenging cases that we see. For the cases that we have all the documents where the pay statements are there, OPT or CPT, they're not really challenging. The ones where because somebody has a problem with their prior employer and they cannot get the documentation, those are the challenging cases. And for those cases, typically what we suggest is at least get some affidavits, show some proofs of emails, and then go with it. And typically, again, USCIS has discretion, but most of the time, if we have enough evidence, they get approved. And the evidence, the good thing about immigration cases is the burden of proof is very, very small. And in legal standards, it's called preponderance of evidence. And preponderance of evidence is what is used in immigration. So this is different from criminal trials, where it is like beyond reasonable doubt, clear and convincing evidence. So it's a different standard for those cases. For immigration, if it is more than likely true, they will accept it, which is the lowest of the burden of proofs that we have in the legal system. So what that means is sometimes even if you don't have the documents that USCIS requests, if you have some other proof, you'll be able to add it. And that's exactly what you'll be working with your attorneys when you run into that situation, and see what kind of alternate documents that you can provide. So typically always, if you may or may not have the right documents, but you can always document with whatever you have and make your case strong. On the CPT side, we see some challenges. The CPT side, the challenges that we see are people take classes online, and USCIS has very, very strict rules on what is considered a full course of study. And taking classes online doesn't constitute a full course of study. That being said, we got some relaxation during COVID time and for a couple of years after COVID time, because online classes were allowed. So some schools had a hybrid program. So based on various the school policies and the service policies, it's a challenge. But sometimes even if somebody has done online classes, depending on which year they've done online classes, sometimes we'll be able to prove that they have not really violated their status. And another challenging aspect of CPT cases is proving attendance. Attendance records are very important. That being said, a lot of schools don't issue attendance records. They put the burden back on the employee. So that is when we see a challenge. So normally the way we argue is we show whatever documents we have from the employee's side. We show their transcripts, show that they've actually done good in classes, good in school. They paid all the tuition. They successfully graduated sometimes. If their CPT is done, their graduation is done. So there are various ways. And but again, most of the time, I think if the employee has completed their studies, their grades are good, they've attended classes, most of the time, even though it is challenging, we should be able to overcome these RFEs.
Absolutely. And, talking about it, would you like to tell us how important, is legal F1 status maintenance throughout, the OPT or CPT period for a seamless transition to H1B status?
So everybody should ensure that they maintain a valid status, which means you either attend classes or you work for 20 hours or more. So it is very important. Thing is, sometimes they might not catch you during H1B time. So when you file a H1B, they might not catch somebody, but down the line, sometimes you might run into issues. So be very, very cautious. That being said, be very careful on who you work for during your OPT period and during your CPT period. A few years back, there were some fraudulent companies, and these fraudulent companies gave some fake letters, fake employment letters. And I don't know if the folks out here, you've heard about companies like Integra, big fraud. So what they used to do is take money from the OPT students, take money and issue letters, because through those letters, people were able to get STEM OPT extensions. It was a fake company. They really didn't offer any training. So be extremely cautious about these fake companies. You make sure you work in a legitimate company, because even now we know some people, they go for visa stamping. They got H-1B approval. They go for visa stamping. At the visa stamping, they're catching and saying you work for a fraudulent company, and this company did not really do any practical training for you. They're giving them a misrepresentation bar. A misrepresentation bar is horrible at the consulate. So maintaining your status is very important, and that means you are working for a legitimate company, not for any random company that is just giving you a letter for some reason. Okay, so be very cautious. If you're not working for a legitimate company, USCIS catches it, you'll be in big trouble. Just Google Integra OPT, and then you'll see a lot of people got into really big trouble because of this company. So if you're not working for a legitimate company, there is always that risk. So maintain your status by not only attending classes, but also working for a legitimate company. If you don't work for a legitimate company in your OPT period, you run the risk. Down the line, you'll run into a risk, a big risk. Even after a couple of years after you got your H1, if they find out, it's going to be a big risk. We have seen multiple cases on our side where they came back and said, a long time back, you worked for this company, and during USCIS investigation, they found that company was fraudulent, and they caused a big issue. Okay, so everybody just ensure you're working for a company that is actually providing you training for 20 hours or more. Very, very important.
Yes, it's good to actually do research before you join anyone, so do your research properly, do your homework properly, and you are not going to fall in trouble for sure, folks out there. So keep at it, all right? And Chand, we have some people out there asking questions. Let's just take up the first one. This one is on YouTube by JPR Prasad. Hi, my qualification is 3 years diploma in electronics and communication engineering with 17 years experience in railways and IT industries. Am I eligible for H1B filing? Can you please clarify?
Sure. So typically for H1B, you always require a 4-year degree. If you don't have a 4-year degree, you require an equivalent degree of 4 years. And what that equivalent degree means is you can get your experience and your education. So in your case, you have 3 years of academic study. You have 17 years of experience. So in US, you can go to a US professor and you can get an evaluation done, a degree and work experience evaluation done. And when you do the combined evaluation, the professor says you have an equivalent, a 4-year equivalent of a bachelor's degree, USCIS will accept it. So what that means is, in general, when you have experience, you don't have the right degree, get a combined evaluation done, and through the combined evaluation, you can argue that you're having an equivalent degree, and you can be successful in the H1B program. So we have a lot of 3-year degrees that we file all the time. Those cases are challenging. That being said, if they have the right relevant experience and you get an evaluation done from a US professor, not from anybody, there are strict rules on who can do an evaluation, and we get it done all the time. If you get that done, you should be eligible for H1B.
All right, all right. So get the evaluation done, JBR Prasad, and you will get your answer for sure. So all the very best. I think it's going to work through. So I would just hope for the best for you out there. So we'll take up more questions, folks out there. Okay, we got this one on Twitter, which is X nowadays, by the way, by Daydreamer. Hi, Chan. Thank you for your guidance. Any tips on how can I impress a visa officer?
Sure. So the visa officer, I mean, a lot of times they look harsh, but they're just doing their job. So all they want to do is just do their job. So from your side, I think the way I think you should talk to USCIS officer on the US side or a visa officer on the embassy side is always answer to the point. Don't give them information that they're not asking you, because by giving more information, sometimes you cause a confusion and sometimes they ask more questions. Always be to the point. If they ask you something, just only answer that. And another important part is misrepresentation. If there is any kind of misrepresentation or feel that it can be construed as misrepresentation, there are problems. So the fact is, the officers, they talk to a lot of people, so they know when people misrepresent some things. So always be cautious. I had one case where somebody went for an interview, and H1B, the officer asked them, "Where do you work?" And they said, "At so and so location." And the officer said immediately, "Okay, so what is the office next door to your office, and what is the color of your office building?" Employee was not able to say. So they found immediately that she misrepresented. So be careful, don't misrepresent, and be cautious. Always speak the truth, but you don't have to elaborate a lot. You just keep it to the point. As long as there is no misrepresentation, they cannot really cause any future bars for you. So be concise, because not everything is about you. It's also about the company you're going to work for. It's also about the university you're going, in case you're going for a school. So a lot depends on other things too. So from your perspective, all you can do is answer to the point. Don't let the visa officer think that you're trying to misrepresent something.
All right. So all the best, Daydreamer. And let's move on to my questions first now, Chand, and I will go ahead again with other questions from the viewers out there watching us. But I want you to discuss with us, what misconceptions or pitfalls should applicants be cautious of concerning F1, OPT, and CPT-based RFEs during, these H1B CAP filings?
So I think the most common misconception is, if you fail to maintain status, your H1B will not be approved. So there is one part. So when your H1B gets filed, whether you maintain status or you don't maintain status, your H1B can still be approved. So even if you're not maintaining status, technically your H1B can still be approved. However, there is something called change of status, and the change of status typically refers to I-94. So if you don't maintain status, there's nothing to worry. Your change of status will get denied, but you can go for visa stamping. You can get visa stamping and then come back. The reason I say that is because a lot of times people think that if you don't maintain status, that is the end of the day, and they try to misrepresent things. They try to create fake documents, and they won't even tell us. And they just create a fake document, and sometimes down the line, we realize that somebody is trying to do something wrong. So I want everybody to be aware that if there is a problem with your status, there are ways to fix it. And the way to fix it is by requesting consular processing, not through misrepresenting your file. So be very cautious. Even if you have not maintained status, it is not going to mean that your H1B will get denied. Your H1B can still be approved even if you fail to maintain status. Even if you have more unemployment than you're supposed to have in your OPT period, your case H1B can still be approved. The proper way to do it is request for consular processing if there is a problem with your status. That is the way to go, not to provide any misrepresenting facts and cause a bigger issue. So overall, what I want to say is, if you have failed to maintain status, go back and talk to your attorney. Let them know the truth and let them fight accordingly, because they can still get an approval, and they can still ask for consular approval and follow the process. Don't make sure you don't misrepresent anything, because when you misrepresent something, they'll use it against you down the line in the future.
Right. And well, Chand, we have Bhivshka. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. He says, thank you. So, thank you so much to you too, Vivshka. Okay, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry. And okay, Chan. So I got another thing I wanted to ask you, and that is, are there specific USCIS regulations or guidelines applicants should know to comply with F1 OPT and CPT requirements during this H1B cap filing process?
Yes, the main requirement is they have to work for 20 hours or more, and the unemployment period. So the unemployment period is 90 days max unemployment during their first initial 1 year OPT. And in the total 3 year STEM OPT, 1 year plus 2 years, the total 3 years, 150 days, 150 days is the max unemployment. So make sure you know that regulation, the max allowed unemployment that you can have. Don't exceed that limit. And also, you have to work for 20 hours or more. So that is the main regulation that OPT students should be aware of. And on the CPT side, a biggest thing a lot of people sometimes miss is, if you start your CPT before your OPT starts, make sure you don't cross 1 year on CPT. If you cross 1 year on CPT, you will not get your OPT. Your OPT will be denied. So make sure if you are working on CPT even before your OPT starts, because some people, before getting their OPT, they start off with CPT. If you are doing CPT curricular practical training before your OPT starts, don't exceed 365 days. If you hit 365 days, your future OPT will be denied. So be very cautious about that. And always, CPT folks, always make sure you attend classes. Attending classes is the first and the foremost important thing. Always make sure your school DSO, he approves your CPT. Don't work in CPT unless the school physically approves it and lets you know that you're good to do CPT.
All right, so keep that in mind, friends. And Chand, one more thing I wanted to ask before we move on to the questions from all the viewers. Even I'm excited. I know you are. Stay tuned for that. But Chand, how can applicants effectively showcase their F1 OPT or CPT experiences and even the qualifications in their H1B cap filings, for maximum approval chances?
So when somebody is on OPT or CPT, they're actually gaining a lot of experience. So what we always say is, if you've done OPT or CPT and you've gained valuable experience, always try to use your documentation. So in the documentation somewhere, try to show what you have done. We don't suggest resumes. We don't want resumes to be a part of the H1B files in general. But what you can do is, you can, again, this is not required, it is not mandatory, but if you get a letter of recommendation from your supervisors while you're on OPT or CPT, definitely add them, because it will tell USCIS you have got US education, and not only that, you have done good at your practical training. It will give the USCIS officers an incentive to let you stay in the country by approving your H1B, because you're bringing some talent into the country. So when you showcase your recommendation letters from your supervisors, it always will put a good impact on the H1B file. So whoever is on OPT, CPT, wherever you can get recommendation letters from your employers, definitely add that, because that will showcase your talent, it will showcase your contributions even before you're on H1B, and that will kind of psychologically, it will kind of make a very good impact on the USCIS officer, because that will showcase your qualifications and make it easy for USCIS officer to approve the case.
All right. So make it easy. Don't make it complicated for yourself. Just stick to what is required, all the information that is required. Too much of information also is bad. Too less is also bad. So just what is required, and all the very best. Stick by the rules. Remember the DUI, and try not to commit any crime. Stay safe. You want to drink, get a friend to drive your car who doesn't drink, and or stay at least. Stuff like that. So play safe, I would say. And I think let's get to some questions now. Moving on, I wanted to take up this one on YouTube by Akhil Kumar. He says, "Can you start navigate H1B filing, please?" Okay, so maybe you could just give him a little tip.
I think he wants to know like how to navigate this or start this entire process. So the first step
Right.
is find a good employer. So the way it works is find a good employer and make sure that employer actually files your registration between March 6th to March 22nd. So the lottery process, the registration process starts on March 6th in about 2 weeks. So find a good employer, make sure they actually register you in the lottery. That is the first step. That is the first step to navigate this entire H1B process.
All right. Thank you so much, Akhil Kumar, for, I know you wanted to ask us this question earlier, so I hope you got your question. If you have more questions, you can still keep commenting, and we would love to take it. Now, this one is from Ira. How should an applicant respond to an RFE related to their OPT or CPT experience?
So again, take a look. The RFE will always tell you what documents to provide, and if they're talking about, sometimes they ask about the employers, and they specifically ask about what you have done during that period with that employer. And the reason is they want to make sure that somebody is only working in the field directly related to their field of study. So normally, again, you have to look at what documents are being requested, because it's always like a whole bunch of documents. But in general, if it is about their experience, we always suggest that they should try to get a letter from their employer that confirms the dates of employment, the job title, and also the job duties, and also the number of hours. Is it full time? Is it part time? Is it 20 hours? Is it more? So this information should be on that experience letter, and they use that letter as a part of their RFE. But OPT CPT RFE is typically more than just employment history, but employment history is typically always a part of those RFEs.
All right. I hope, Ira, you got your answer to your question. And Akhil already is saying thank you so much, Chan. So thank you. And if you have more questions, tell us. Now let us take this one by Samyukta. How to maintain F1 status? Okay, Vihan first. What are the best practices for F1 students to follow when disclosing criminal records or legal issues during the H1B application process?
Sure. It's very important that you disclose any issues right up front. The reason is, if not, the USCIS sometimes what they do is they look at the background checks and they issue a very, very bad RFE. We have seen RFEs where the employee did not disclose to us. We get an RFE saying our records show that you got arrested on so and so date, and all those things. So if somebody has any criminal record, the best way is, there are a couple of things. One should always get their court documents. So anytime somebody gets arrested, and the case will always go to the court, the criminal court. And what happens is, initially there is a petition filed by the prosecutor, and then finally what will happen is the judge, he'll make a final ruling. So the final judgment is a super important copy. And if you used an attorney and the case got dismissed, which means, yes, you were charged initially, you're charged with the crime, you got arrested, but you're found not guilty. So that final judgment is very important, because a lot of people think just because you got arrested, it's end of the day. No, when somebody gets arrested, all it means is you are charged with a crime, and that means you're charged and you're arrested. But in US, in the legal system, you're innocent until proven guilty. And what that means is, even after you get arrested, the case goes, and the judge finally says that the case is dismissed, you're not guilty. The final judgment is what counts. So always make sure if somebody has any criminal record, get the court documents. Get the court documents to prove what is the final outcome. So just because somebody had a criminal record, somebody got arrested, might not matter much if the case is eventually dismissed. Or most of the time, if it's a simple crime, what happens is the judge sometimes they'll give probation, they'll give them a chance, they'll give some rehabilitation chances. So always look at what kind of a probation you got, what kind of a deferred adjudication did you get, or if you are on probation, do you have some conditions. So document all that. And most of the time, as long as it is not a felony, it is not like a crime that has more than 1 year of jail sentence, most of the time, if it is a one-time offense, you will be able to get through by providing all these documents. And the way it should start is always submit the court final judgment and give an explanation. What happened? Why is it a one-time thing? Why it is not going to ever repeat in the future? And what kind of rehabilitation process you're going through? And doing so, most of the time, USS should be fine as long as the crime does not have a jail sentence of more than 1 year. Any jail sentence of more than 1 year typically is like very, very hard to overcome.
All right, Vihan, that one is for you. Hope you got your answer. Now, Samyukta, I'm rushing through, Chan. Don't mind. We just got a couple of minutes left. So, how to maintain F1 status while dealing with changes in employment status or gaps in employment during your OPT?
So gaps in employment are completely okay because the rules are little flexible, not too flexible, but a little flexible. You are allowed to have 90 days unemployment initially, or overall in your entire OPT, 150 days. So what that means is the gaps are okay. If you have a gap, you have a gap. Thing is, don't exceed the the maximum limit that you're entitled to. However, anytime you have a gap in the employment, always contact your DSO, be in touch with the DSO, talk to the DSO, and they will kind of give you more suggestions. Some universities also have international student offices. If possible, try to also talk to your student advisor. But DSO is the key person. You have to keep the DSO updated at all times. So anytime you have employment changes, always make sure you talk to the DSO, get it updated in your service, updated in your I-20. Employment changes have to go through the DSO. A lot of times what happens is people come to us and say, I had an employment change a long time back. I did not inform the DSO. Uh, Typically, it is not a problem, but somebody could run into a problem because it is important, at least as per the regulations, you're required to notify your DSO. So whenever there's an employment change, contact your DSO, know your limits, maximum unemployment limits, don't exceed those limits.
All right, don't exceed your limits. Always, I think that works in every field, right, Chand?
Yeah.
You should always know your limits. And we'll take up another one. And this one is from um, Charisma Gillen. I am a student on F1 visa. I wanted to know if my brother can apply for a green card for me and my family. He is a citizen. In case he does apply, does it impact H1B processing for me?
So, uh, the sibling. So a sibling can always apply for the green card. So if somebody is a US citizen and they have a brother or a sister, they can file the green card for a brother or a sister, and there is something called an F4 category. So under F4 family-based category, they can file the green card. And what they're basically saying is the I-130 petition. It's called the I-130 immigrant petition. So it can be filed. However, the problem is if they have to travel out of the country, on an F1 visa. If they travel out of the country on F1 visa, and in the future if they require F1 visa, sometimes it could be problematic. The reason is F1 visa is a single intent visa. With F1 visa, you can't have a green card intent. So if you're not traveling very soon, then I don't see a problem if your brother applies for the green card. But if you have to travel very soon and you're supposed to get a F1 visa, probably not a good idea. And that being said, the impact with H1B. If somebody is getting their H1B filed in the future, then applying for the green card will have no effect. So if somebody's on H1B, definitely if the brother files for a green card, there is no issue at all. If it is F1, be a little bit cautious. But for the H1B part, there is no issue at all. And if somebody is on H1 and you have a brother who's a US citizen, definitely I would encourage you to see if the green card can be filed, because it's a good thing. It's a good thing to do, to get the I-130 filed, and it has no impact with H1B. I mean, H1B is a dual intent visa. So what that means is on H1B, you can have an intent to become a green card holder. So if your brother does file for your green card, it's a good thing. It is not a negative thing at all.
All right, it's a good thing, and they are two different things. It's not going to impact each other. I think it's only going to complement each other, right, Chand?
That is correct.
Now
Yeah,
we have
and
another
we have a lot of
question.
people on H1B. They either go through employment-based green card, which is very common, and some people,
Mhm.
lucky people who qualify through family-based immigration, they also get the family-based immigration process started.
Right. All right, we'll take up more questions, Chand. If you don't mind, stick with us a couple of more minutes if it's fine
Sure,
with
sure,
you.
sure.
All right, this one is from SP. Why are the RFEs increasing? There are vigorous RFEs asked from F1 visa students having completed 1 year OPT regarding work done. Can we address the issue if companies are consulting and not responding?
Um, yeah. So again, there are two kinds of RFEs that we are seeing. One is like when somebody is on OPT and they apply for STEM OPT extension. We are seeing a lot of RFEs coming through. So normally when somebody applies for I-765 EAD card for their OPT or OPT extension, normally RFEs were rare. Lately we are seeing a lot of RFEs. And again, what is happening, and I think the reality is, so in these RFEs, they're talking about bank transactions. They're talking about bank deposits. They want copies of all those bank deposits. So I think a lot of people. So nowadays, what a lot of students I think are doing is they're doing part-time jobs illegally. For example, some are working as Uber drivers. Some are working as like in the restaurants outside of the school. So these are all unauthorized employments. So USCIS is requesting the bank statements. This is a trend we are seeing in the last few months, a very recent trend where the bank statements are being requested. And simple cases where, like STEM OPT RFEs, where we think people should not get an RFE when they apply for OPT extension using their 765 form. Those cases are seeing RFEs. And I think it's also because some employers, what they do is they're using fraudulent ways where they pay the employee and they take the money back from the employee. So a lot of shady companies do this. And I think
Mhm.
USCIS is trying their best to catch fraud. So I think the reason is because there is some bad happening, they're trying to eliminate that fraud. And unfortunately, because of few bad apples, other people are seeing these RFEs. So
Mhm.
the main reason is I think USCIS feels that nowadays a lot of people are actually working off campus, and they're getting all these payments because they're working as a Uber driver or doing some part-time
Mhm.
jobs, or because they feel that the employer they don't really have a job, but employer is trying to act like they're paying them and taking the money back to kind of mimic that they're maintaining status. So some companies are doing this fraud, and USCIS has uncovered this issue, that some companies have been acting like they're paying the employee to make it look like they're getting paid and then take the money back. So that is probably the reason why we are seeing a lot of these RFEs, and a lot of these RFEs are actually asking for bank statements to see what is happening with these OPT employees. Are they getting paid, or are they getting paid to just make it look like they're getting paid, or if they're
Mhm.
actually working in some unauthorized jobs. So yes, the RFEs are increasing, but I think it's a part of USCIS trying to uncover this fraud, which I think they're realizing that it is happening, and they want to stop it before it becomes a wide scale problem.
True, true. But folks, I think I'll just say that there's really nothing to worry about if you're doing the right thing, if you're on the right path, and you're not hiding anything. It's just scrutiny. They're all doing their jobs. Don't you worry if you are sticking by the rules yourself. All right. Right, Chand, you
Yes.
wanted to add something?
That is right. And again, I think there's a lot of media news also lately saying that like a lot of people are doing like off-campus jobs, like working in restaurants. What my suggestion is, like, don't work in those jobs. You should not be doing those jobs because you guys are highly educated. It's a matter of 1 year, 2 years. You'll eventually find a very good job. So don't take a chance, because if you get caught and it is on your record, you lose the chance to live in US forever. So don't take the chance at all. USCIS is
Yeah.
cracking down on these things, because what they are saying is these things are becoming more and more, and they want to stop it before it becomes widespread.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe you could tell us what kind of jobs they could take up and how to stick by the rules. Maybe just a few tips before we leave.
So you are supposed to work in so if you're an OPT or CPT, you're only supposed to work in those jobs that are directly related to your field of study. So you can't get OPT and start working in a restaurant. That is against the regulations. So you just have to make sure there is a nexus between your job duties and your field of study. So only work for those places which are approved. If in doubt, always contact your DSO. Always discuss with your DSO. If your DSO says no, don't do it, definitely don't do it. Always take the help in your school. And if you see that something is going wrong or you don't see something is right, definitely let your school DSO know. They'll be helpful between. They'll act as a liaison between you and USCIS. And so always take help. If in doubt, DSO is the easiest person because it doesn't cost any money. They'll give you good guidance.
All right. And Chan, let's just take two more questions and we'll wrap up our today's show. So Susan De Silva asks, how can F1 students address any discrepancies or issues related to their CPT or OPT experiences in their H1B cap filings?
So again, some people. I mean, we know the rules are that you have to maintain status and do all the things right, but some people, due to some sheer bad luck, they might not find employment, and they might have more unemployment than that is allowed. And sometimes people don't get paid properly by their employers. So sometimes they have issues. So what I think people should do is they should at least try to explain and at least put it in writing, like at least because USCIS, they don't like misrepresentation. But if there's a genuine problem, they have a discretion. They have a discretion to approve things. So always like try to document because everybody's scenario is different. Try to document what has happened. And the best part is even if somebody fails to maintain status, there's a genuine reason. Yes, you failed to maintain status. You failed to work. You had more than 150 days of unemployment. There are still ways to fix it. And the ways to fix it is through asking for consular processing. So if there is an issue, there is an issue. Document to the best of your ability on what has happened. And as long as it's not a criminal act, they typically are very, very flexible. So just make sure. I mean, you have an issue, let USCIS know, ask for their discretion. If not, ask for consular processing. And doing so, we have seen numerous people who had issues, clear issues with maintenance of status, notified USCIS, got consular processing, and through consular processing, they fix their problem. So there are ways. If you have a major issue, you talk to the company that is filing your H-1B, let them know so they can check with their attorney. So it's not end of the day, there are ways to fix the problems, even if there are discrepancies. Always make sure it is documented and there is no accidental misrepresentation.
Absolutely. And to every problem, there is a solution. All right, before we go on to wrapping it, we got Kabir asking, what documentation is required for H1B cap filing to support your CPT and OPT experience?
The main thing is document your pay statements and your I-20s. I-20s pay statements are super important for both CPT and OPT. And for CPT, also additionally, try to provide your CPT agreement. So the CPT agreement, it is the agreement between your school, you, and your employer at the time your CPT was authorized. Always try to include the CPT agreement and any proof of attendance, class attendance proof, if possible. And for CPT, because most of the time for CPT, sometimes you might still be in the process of CPT. If that is the case, always include your latest transcript. USCIS wants to know if you're actually progressing towards a degree. Are you failing your classes or not? So somebody who is still doing ongoing CPT, always provide your latest transcript. That is very important to show that you're making progress towards your degree. And doing so, at least initially, that will kind of reduce your risk of getting these RFEs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Chand, we still got so many questions, so many things to discuss more about the topic. And I'm sure folks out there also have a lot of questions. So, friends, if you have questions directly to the attorney, please don't forget to mail him directly in his email address. And his email address is displayed on the screen. That is law@spblawfirm.com. And you can even call him in the number 817-523-8247 and visit his website, spblawfirm.com. And you could also mail me, friends, at nipa@highrightypeople.com, or even call me or WhatsApp me in this number, which is there on the screen. Note it down, 408-335-6444. And even visit our website, www.highrightypeople.com. And since we still have a lot more to talk about, Chand, we will definitely catch up in another episode, covering a second part to dive deeper into the topics that we have still got to discuss, and thank you so much for joining us today, Chand. It was such an honor and a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Nipasa. Have a good day.
Have a good day, you too. And that is Chan Parvataneni, friends, from SPV Law Firm. And thank you so much, all you folks out there. So, whether you are an employer, sponsoring H-1B candidates, or an individual seeking this visa, and, there are so many intricacies, questions, confusions, and clarifications that you probably need. And also, you probably want to know about the application process that's essential. This is the stop, Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. This is where you should get subscribe, hit the bell icon and follow us, subscribe to us on we are there on Instagram as well, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook. And definitely we are going to catch up again in another episode. You all stay tuned for more information here. We are going to explore a lot about immigration and jobs on this channel. This is Nipasa saying bye for now. Have a great day ahead, folks, on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Bye bye.